Hello, dear listeners. Do you have a significant other? If you do, I hope you live in love and harmony. Why do I ask? Because the stories gathered in this video will send chills down your spine and fill you with dread. Enjoy watching.
I met Chloe at a friend's barbecue. She was funny, easy to talk to, normal. She worked as a dental hygienist. She loved true crime podcasts and her cat. We moved in together after about a year. It was good. Then, after maybe 18 months, she started asking about my will. It wasn't a big deal at first. We were watching TV and some lawyer commercial came on. She just said, "You have a will, right?" I laughed and said, "No, I was 32 and my biggest asset was my Honda." She got quiet. A few days later, she brought it up again. She said if something happened to me, my mom would get everything and she, Chloe, would be left with nothing. I said, "Babe, nothing's gonna happen." She didn't like that. The questions changed. She started asking detailed things. Did I have life insurance through work? Who was the beneficiary? She'd ask about my health, my family's health history, in this really focused way. She bought a book on estate planning and left it on the coffee table. I'd catch her just staring at me sometimes with a blank look. I got a weird feeling. I called my buddy Mark and told him about it, joking that Chloe was planning to off me. He didn't laugh. He said, "Dude, that's not normal. Be careful." The real thing started with the hiking trip. Chloe planned the whole thing. She was suddenly super into hiking, which she'd never been before. She picked this trail up in the mountains, said a coworker told her about the views. She was insistent we go, even though the forecast looked sketchy. The morning we were supposed to leave, I accidentally spilled coffee all over the trail map. I said we should just stay in. She got so angry. I'd never seen her like that. She screamed that I always ruined everything. She threw the wet map at me and locked herself in the bedroom. That night, I couldn't sleep. She was out cold next to me. I just had this heavy feeling in my gut. I got up, went to the living room, and opened her laptop. She used the same password for everything, her cat's name and her birthday. I got in. Her search history was clean. Too clean, like it had been cleared. I checked her bookmarks. Nothing. I was about to give up when I saw she had a folder on the desktop named Tax Stuff. I opened it. Inside were PDFs. One was a life insurance application form, partially filled out with my name and social security number. My hands got cold. Another was a scanned article about a hiking accident in the same state park she wanted to go to. A man had fallen. The article said it was ruled accidental. The last PDF was a photocopy of a handwritten letter. It was from a man named David. It was a love letter addressed to Chloe. It talked about their plans, how he couldn't wait to move in together. It was dated 3 years ago. At the bottom, in different handwriting, was a note: policy void, beneficiary contested. A. I just sat there. The room felt very small. I heard the floorboard creak behind me. Chloe was standing in the doorway. She wasn't angry. She looked calm, tired. "You shouldn't have done that," she said. "Who's David?" I asked. My voice was shaky. She walked over and sat on the couch across from me. "He was my fiancé." "Was?" "He died. A hiking accident. It was devastating." She looked down at her hands. "I lost everything. The life insurance company fought me on it. They said there were irregularities. I didn't get a dime. I had to move back home." I stared at her. The pieces were fitting together in a way that made me feel sick. "And before David?" She looked up at me. Her eyes were flat. "What do you mean?" Was there someone else before him? She didn't answer for a long time. She just looked at me. Then she said, "I loved him too. His name was Ryan. He had a heart condition. Nobody knew." She said it like she was reciting a grocery list. I stood up. "I'm leaving." "Where will you go?" she asked. Not threatening, just curious. "Away from you." I went to the bedroom, my hands trembling so bad I could barely stuff clothes into a gym bag. I expected her to follow me, to scream, to do something. She didn't. When I came back out, she was still on the couch, just looking out the dark window. "It doesn't have to be like this," she said softly. "We can just forget this. We can be normal." I didn't answer. I walked out the door, got in my car, and drove to a cheap motel. I called Mark from the parking lot. I told him everything. He was silent for a minute. Then he said, "You need to call the police." "And say what? My girlfriend looked at hiking accident articles and has a dead ex?" The next morning, I called off work. I drove to the library in the next town over. I felt paranoid, like I was in a movie. I started searching. It took hours. I searched for Ryan and Chloe and the town she grew up in. Nothing. I searched for David and hiking accident and the state park. I found the article she had saved. Then, on a whim, I searched the county clerk's public records for marriage licenses. I typed in her full name, Chloe Ann Miller. 2 results came up. One was for David Richter, 3.5 years ago. The other was for Ryan Evans, 5 years and 8 months ago. I printed the records. My heart was hammering. I went back to the obituaries. I found Ryan Evans. He died 4 weeks after the marriage license date, unexpectedly at home. Donations to the American Heart Association in lieu of flowers. I found David Richter's obituary. He died 11 months after his marriage license, tragically in a fall while hiking. I sat back in the hard library chair. The air felt thin. She hadn't just been with them. She had married them. And then they died. I drove to the police station. I told my story to a detective, a guy who looked like he hadn't slept. I showed him the printed records. He listened, took notes. He said it was concerning, but that without evidence of a crime, there wasn't much he could do. He said he'd make some calls to the jurisdictions where the men died. He told me to stay away from her and to change my locks. I did. I got a restraining order. I moved to a new apartment. I told all my friends. For 6 months, nothing happened. I started to think maybe I'd overreacted. Maybe it was all just horrible, tragic coincidence. Then, last week, Mark sent me a link. It was a wedding announcement from a small-town newspaper 2 states over. There was a picture of Chloe, smiling that pretty smile. She was wearing a white dress. The article said she had just married a man named Gregory. The article mentioned he was a widower and that he'd come into a significant life insurance payout after his first wife's passing a few years back. I tried to find a contact for Gregory. I couldn't. I called the police in that town. The officer I spoke to was polite, but he said unless I had proof of an imminent crime, he couldn't just go question a newlywed on his honeymoon based on a hunch from an ex-boyfriend. I still have the link bookmarked. I look at it every day. I look at Gregory's smiling face in that photo, and I wait for the news. I started dating Lauren because she made me feel safe. That sounds stupid, I know, but after my dad died, I was just unsteady. Lauren was a rock. She was a nurse at the county hospital, always calm, always knew what to do. When my car broke down, she handled the tow truck guy. When I had the flu, she brought me soup and Gatorade and took my temperature. I moved into her place after 8 months. It was easier. Her apartment was weirdly empty. I mean, she had furniture, but no personal stuff. No yearbooks, no childhood photos, no boxes of old junk. When I asked about it, she said she was a minimalist. She said her childhood wasn't great and she didn't like to look back. I figured she had her reasons. The first thing that bothered me was the phone calls. Sometimes her phone would ring and she'd look at the screen and her face would just shut down. She'd say, "I have to take this," and go into the bathroom or walk outside. They never lasted long. When she came back, she'd be quiet for an hour. If I asked who it was, she'd say, "Just work," or "a patient's family member being difficult." Then there was the news story. We were watching the local news one night. A story came on about a hit and run over in Middleton, a town about 40 minutes away. A guy on a bicycle was killed. The police were asking for witnesses. Lauren got up so fast she knocked her glass of water over. She didn't even try to clean it up. She just said, "I can't watch this," and went to bed. I remember thinking it was sad, but her reaction was so strong. A few weeks later, I was looking for a spare charger in the hall closet. I moved a stack of blankets on the top shelf, and a small framed photo fell face down. I picked it up. It was a picture of a younger Lauren, her hair longer, with her arm around a guy. They were both smiling in front of a lake. He had a kind face. On the back, written in pen, it said, "Ben and me, Silver Lake, forever." I put it back where I found it. That night, I asked her, casually, if she'd ever been serious with anyone before me. She got very still. "Why would you ask that?" "Just curious. You never talk about it." "There's nothing to talk about," she said. "It's in the past." I let it drop, but I started noticing more. The way she'd tense up if a police car drove by us. How she never, ever wanted to go to Middleton, even though they had a great movie theater. How she'd sometimes wake up in the middle of the night, breathing fast, and just stare at the ceiling. The breaking point was the car. She had an old Toyota Camry, reliable. One Saturday, she said she was taking it to the car wash. After she left, I realized she'd taken my gym bag by mistake, and my work keys were in it. I called her, but it went straight to voicemail. I figured I'd just drive over and swap bags. The car wash was about a mile away. I didn't see her car in any of the bays. I was about to leave when I noticed the detail center around back. You could pay for an interior shampoo. I drove around. Her Camry was there, parked by a vacuum hose. She wasn't inside it.
The driver's side door was open. A guy in a uniform was using a small handheld vacuum on the floor mat. But he wasn't just vacuuming. He was scrubbing at the fabric near the gas pedal with a small brush and some cleaner. He was focused, intense, and the mat he'd taken out was dark gray. But the spot he was cleaning was a different color. It looked reddish brown. My blood went cold. I thought of the hit and run, the bicycle, Middleton. I must have made a sound because the detail guy looked up. He saw me staring. His face changed. He quickly put the mat back, shut the door, and started walking toward the main building, not looking back. I drove home fast. Lauren's car was in our driveway already. She was inside, making lunch. "Hey," she said, smiling. "Car's all clean." "I went looking for you," I said. My voice sounded strange. "At the car wash." The smile didn't leave her face, but it got tight. "Oh? I was just in and out. I saw a guy detailing your car, really working on the driver's side floor mat." She put down the knife she was holding. "So?" "It looked like he was trying to get a stain out. A dark stain." She was silent for a long time. Then she walked over to the kitchen table and sat down. She looked defeated. "It's not what you think. Tell me what it is then." She took a deep breath. "The hit and run. The one on the news. I was there." My stomach dropped. "Lauren, no, listen. I was driving home from a shift. I was so tired. It was dark. This guy on the bike, he came out of nowhere. I hit him. I just panicked. I drove away. I've been living in hell ever since." She started to cry. Real tears. "I'm a nurse. I help people. And I did this. I'm so ashamed. I'm so scared." I sat down across from her. My head was spinning. Part of me was horrified. Another part, the part that loved her, wanted to fix it. "You have to go to the police, Lauren. It was an accident, but you left the scene. You have to turn yourself in."
She looked at me with wide, wet eyes. "I can't. I'll lose my license. I'll go to jail. My life will be over." She reached across the table and grabbed my hands. "Please, you're the only one who knows. We can just forget it. It was an accident. He's already gone. Going to the police won't bring him back." I pulled my hands away. "I can't forget it. You have to do the right thing." She studied my face. The fear and tears in her eyes slowly drained away, replaced by something else, something cold and assessing. The transformation was chilling. "The right thing," she repeated flatly. She stood up and went to the junk drawer by the sink. She pulled out a small, folded piece of newsprint. She tossed it on the table in front of me. It was an old, weathered newspaper clipping from 7 years ago. The headline read, "Middleton Man Found Dead in Apparent Hiking Fall." There was a picture. It was the man from the photo in the closet, Ben. "His name was Ben Harris," Lauren said, her voice now utterly empty. "My fiancé. Everyone thought he fell. The police ruled it an accident." I looked from the clipping to her face. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," she said slowly, "that the stain in my car isn't from a bicyclist I hit last month. I was in Middleton last month, but I wasn't driving. I was visiting Ben's family, offering my condolences again. They still think of me as the grieving fiancé." She leaned forward, her hands on the table. "The stain is from someone else, someone who, like you, thought he knew what I did, who threatened to go to the police. He wouldn't listen to reason either." She looked me directly in the eyes. "So, what are you going to do now?" I didn't move. I couldn't breathe. The woman standing in front of me wasn't the woman I loved. She was a stranger, a careful, calm, hollow stranger who solved problems. I stood up. I didn't say a word. I walked out the kitchen, out the front door, and got in my car. I drove. I'm still driving. I left my phone in her apartment. I'm writing this from a library computer 2 states away. I don't know what she's done. I don't know what she'll do. I just know I can't go back, and I can never, ever tell anyone who might go looking for her.
It wasn't love at first sight with Maya. It was comfort. After my divorce, the apartment was too quiet. My sister set us up. Maya was kind. She was a teacher's aide for special needs kids. She had a soft voice and she listened. She'd bring over casseroles and we'd watch Netflix. It was easy. When she suggested I sell my place and move into her house, it made sense. Financially, it was smarter. She owned a small ranch house in a quiet neighborhood. It needed some work, but it had a big backyard. The house felt off. Not haunted, just heavy. The previous owner, an old man, had died in the master bedroom. Maya told me that up front. She'd gotten a good deal because of it. She said death didn't scare her. She was practical. The first few months were fine. Then I started noticing things about her routine. Every Thursday night, she'd go down to the basement. She said it was for deep cleaning and organizing. She'd be down there for 2, sometimes 3 hours. The basement was unfinished, concrete floors and exposed beams. We stored holiday decorations and my old weights down there. It didn't need weekly cleaning. One Thursday, I pretended to have a headache and went to bed early. I waited until I heard her go downstairs. I crept to the top of the basement stairs. I didn't go down, I just listened. I didn't hear cleaning. I didn't hear boxes moving. I heard her talking. It was a low, steady murmur, a monologue. I couldn't make out the words. It was the tone that got me. It was soothing, gentle, like someone calming a child. It would go on for a minute, then stop for a long pause, then start again. She wasn't on the phone. I checked. Her phone was charging on the kitchen counter. I went back to bed, cold all over. When she came up later, she seemed normal, relaxed even. I asked what she'd been doing. "Oh, sorting through those old boxes of mine," she said, smiling. "Found my high school yearbook. It's embarrassing." I didn't mention the talking. The next thing was the grocery shopping. She always went alone on Saturday mornings. She said it was her me time. One Saturday, I needed a specific type of oil for my bike chain. I figured I'd catch her at the store, save her a trip. I drove to the food mart she always used. I saw her car, but she wasn't going into the store. She was walking from her car to a beat-up green sedan parked at the far end of the lot. She got into the passenger seat. The car just sat there. I parked where I could watch, feeling like a stalker. They sat for 20 minutes. No one got out. Then Maya got out, walked back to her car, and drove away. The green sedan drove off in the other direction. That night, I asked how her grocery trip was. "Fine," she said. "Busy." She didn't have any groceries with her. I checked the car later. Empty. I was starting to feel crazy. Was she having an affair? Meeting someone in a parking lot? Talking to herself in the basement? None of it fit the Maya I knew. I decided to look in the basement. I waited for a Tuesday when she had a teacher's conference after school. I went downstairs with a flashlight. It looked normal. Boxes, an old washer and dryer, my weight bench. I started looking closer. In the far corner, behind the water heater, there was a section of the concrete floor that looked different, smoother. The concrete was a slightly different shade, like it had been patched. I got down on my knees. The patch was roughly rectangular, about 3 feet by 6 feet. The edges were neat. I tapped it. It sounded solid. But right along one edge, my finger found a small, recessed handle. It was flush with the floor, painted over. You'd never see it unless you were looking for it. It was a door. A door in the floor.
My heart was pounding in my ears. I pulled the handle. It was heavy, but it lifted. It was a thick slab like a cellar door. Below was darkness and a smell. Not decay. It was a clean, sharp smell, antiseptic, like a hospital. There was a ladder. I climbed down, my flashlight shaking. It was a small room, maybe 8 by 10. The walls were painted white. There was a narrow bed with clean white sheets bolted to the floor, a small toilet and sink in the corner, a shelf with books, and on the wall, taped up, were children's drawings, bright crayon pictures of houses and families, and a woman with yellow hair that I realized was meant to be Maya. In the center of the floor was a wheelchair. It was an old-fashioned model with big wheels. On the seat was a faded embroidered pillow. It had a name stitched on it in clumsy childlike thread, Kevin. I heard the basement door at the top of the stairs open. "Honey, you home?" Maya's voice. I froze. I heard her footsteps on the wooden stairs. I had no time to climb out. I switched off my flashlight and pressed myself into the corner behind the ladder in the dark. Her feet appeared on the concrete floor above me. They walked across the basement, right to the edge of the hidden door. I held my breath. She didn't open it. She stood there for a full minute. I could see her shadow. Then she spoke. Her voice was that same soft, gentle murmur I'd heard from the stairs. It was directed down here into the hole. "It's okay," she whispered. "Don't be scared. I'm here. Everything's going to be okay now. I promise." She waited as if listening for a reply. Then her footsteps walked away. I heard her go back upstairs. I sat in that dark, white room for an hour, too terrified to move. The wheelchair seemed to watch me. Kevin. Who was Kevin? When I finally climbed out and replaced the door, I went to the local library. I looked up the previous owner of the house, Frank Ellis. He died at 82. Obituary said he was survived by a son. I searched the son's name. Nothing. Then I searched the address along with the word disappeared. It was a small article from 15 years ago. Local man still missing. The man's name was Kevin Ellis. He was 42 years old. He was severely disabled, the article said. Cerebral palsy. He required full-time care. His aging father, Frank, was his sole caregiver. One morning, Frank woke up and Kevin was gone. His wheelchair was still in the house. The police suspected Kevin had wandered off, but no trace was ever found. Frank died a few years later. The house was sold. Maya bought it 5 years after Frank died. I put it together, sitting there in the library. The old man didn't just die in the bedroom. He died alone after his son vanished from a locked house, leaving an empty wheelchair behind. And now Maya was talking to the empty room, keeping it clean, stocked, meeting someone in a parking lot, maybe to get cash. For what? I didn't go home. I went to the police. I told them everything. The detective was skeptical until I showed him the news article and told him about the room. He got a warrant. They found the room. They found the wheelchair. They took Maya in for questioning. They found bank statements, large cash withdrawals every month for years, every Thursday. They never found Kevin Ellis. They never found a body, but they found something else in Maya's past, in another state before she was a teacher's aide. She had been a live-in nurse for a rich old woman with dementia. The old woman died, left Maya a small inheritance. The family never questioned it. The police tried to build a case, but with no body, no evidence of violence in the secret room, it went nowhere. They had to let her go. They called it a bizarre situation. They suggested she needed psychological help. She came back to the house. I was long gone by then, living in a new apartment. She called me once. Her voice was still soft, still kind. "You didn't understand," she said. "I was taking care of him. He's safe now. He's finally safe." I hung up. I changed my number. Sometimes I think about that antiseptic smell. I think about the clean sheets on that little bed. I think about the money and the empty wheelchair and Maya's gentle voice in the dark. Mostly, I wonder who she's talking to now. I never thought I'd find someone like Jenna. I'm a simple guy. I work at a print shop. I go fishing. She was brighter than me. Funny, smart, beautiful. She had this big, close family, Italian. Sunday dinners at her parents' house with a dozen aunts, uncles, cousins. It was loud and warm and everything my quiet childhood wasn't. I loved it. I especially loved her sister, Maria. Maria was Jenna's twin, not identical. They looked alike, but Maria was quieter. Sad, maybe. She had a soft smile and watchful eyes. She was recovering from a bad car accident a few years back, Jenna said. It left her with a limp and some memory issues. She lived in the converted apartment over the family's garage. The family was very protective of her. I felt for her. I started making a point to talk to her at the gatherings. She was shy at first, but she'd light up when I asked about her paintings. She was a talented artist. We'd talk about simple things, the weather, a book. She was easy to be with. Jenna was always busy being the life of the party, so it was nice to have a quiet conversation. Then one Sunday, Jenna pulled me aside in the kitchen. Her grip on my arm was tight. "You should leave Maria alone," she said, her smile not matching her eyes. "Why? She's nice." "She's fragile. She gets confused. She might misinterpret your friendliness. It's not good for her recovery." She kissed my cheek. Just stick with me, okay?" It felt off, but I agreed. At the next dinner, I avoided Maria. I saw her watching me from across the room, looking hurt and confused. It made me feel like a jerk. A week later, I was at Jenna's apartment. She was in the shower. Her phone on the coffee table buzzed. A text notification popped up. It was from Maria. The message read, "Why is he ignoring me? Did you tell him not to talk to me?" Before I could think, another text came in. "You can't keep doing this." The shower stopped. I quickly put the phone down. My mind was racing. The texts sounded desperate. Not like someone who was confused, but like someone who was trapped. I started paying closer attention. The family's protectiveness felt more like surveillance. Maria was never alone. An aunt or an uncle was always hovering. She never had her own phone. She never left the property. When I mentioned maybe taking the sisters out for a movie, Jenna made an excuse. When I suggested Maria might like to sell her paintings at a local fair, the whole family shut it down. "Too stressful for her," her father said, his voice firm. The final straw was the medicine. I was helping Jenna's dad carry some boxes to the garage apartment. Maria's door was open. On her small kitchen table, I saw a lineup of prescription bottles, 7 or 8 of them. One was a large orange bottle with no pharmacy label, just a handwritten note taped to it. "Maria, 3x daily with food." I'd seen that same bottle before, in Jenna's bathroom cabinet. That night, I asked Jenna about it. "Why do you have a bottle of pills with Maria's name on it?" She froze. "It's just her backup supply, in case she runs out. It's not from a pharmacy. It's got handwriting on it. Her doctor compounds them specially. It's complicated." She got into bed. "Can we not talk about my sister's medical issues? It's private." I couldn't sleep. After an hour, I got up. Jenna was out cold. I went to her bathroom and opened the cabinet. The orange bottle was gone. A cold certainty settled over me. Something was very wrong.
The next day, I called in sick to work. I drove to the county records office. I looked up the property under the family's name. Then I searched for any police reports at that address. Nothing recent. I searched the local paper's archives for the car accident Jenna mentioned. I found a brief report from 4 years ago. Single vehicle accident. Driver, Jenna Moretti. Passenger, Maria Moretti. Passenger treated for minor injuries. Minor injuries? Not the catastrophic, life-altering damage the family described? I drove back to the neighborhood, but not to the house. I parked down the street and walked to the small park where some of the older neighbors gathered. I found an old man feeding pigeons. I struck up a conversation, then casually mentioned the Moretti family. "Oh, such a tragedy with the one daughter," I said. The old man shook his head. "Yeah, a real shame. She was a pretty thing, so lively. The accident changed her, huh?" He gave me a funny look. "Accident? Jenna didn't change. She's still the wild one." My blood went cold. "Jenna?" "Yeah, she was the one who got really hurt, wasn't she, after the crash? Had to drop out of nursing school." I just stared at him. I think I'm confused. I'm talking about Maria." He squinted at me. "Maria? Which one's Maria?" I couldn't breathe. I thanked him and walked back to my car, my legs shaky. Which one's Maria? I drove to the house. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Quiet. I didn't see any cars. I went around back to the garage apartment. The door was unlocked. Maria was inside. She was sitting at her easel, painting. She jumped when I entered. "You have to get out of here," I said, my voice low and urgent. She looked terrified. "I can't. They'll be back soon." "Who are you?" I asked. She started to cry. "I'm Jenna." The world tilted. "What?" "My sister. Her name is Maria. She's the one who was in the accident. She had a head injury, a personality change. She became mean, controlling.
She convinced my parents that I was the one who was hurt, that I was Maria. She had access to drugs from nursing school. She makes me take them. She tells everyone I'm confused, that I have memory problems. The words poured out of her in a desperate whisper. If I argue, they increase the dose. They think they're helping me. They think she's me. I heard a car pull into the driveway. Doors slammed. Her eyes went wide with panic. You have to go. If she knows you talk to me, she'll make you leave, or she'll make them think you're hurting me. Come with me now, I pleaded. I can't. They'll stop you. They'll believe her. They always believe her. I heard voices at the main house. Jenna's, no, Maria's voice, laughing. The woman in front of me, the real Jenna, pushed a small folded piece of paper into my hand. Go. Please. Just remember. I slipped out the back door and through the neighbor's yard. I didn't stop shaking until I was miles away. I unfolded the paper. It was a crude, childlike drawing, like one a therapist might ask you to make. It showed two girls. One was labeled me. The other was labeled her. Between them was a big car, and the girl labeled her was shown pushing the girl labeled me in front of it. I sat in my car for a long time. Then I went to the police. I told them everything. I showed them the drawing. They listened. They said it sounded like a family mental health issue. Without proof of a crime, they couldn't just remove an adult from her family's care. They suggested I distance myself. I sent one text to the number I knew, to the woman who called herself Jenna. It said, I know which one is Maria. The reply came a minute later. I think it's best we don't see each other anymore. My family agrees. Please don't contact us, for Maria's sake. That was 6 months ago. I drive by the house sometimes. I see her, the real Jenna, sometimes sitting on the porch of the garage apartment. She never looks at my car. She just stares straight ahead, at nothing. And standing in the window of the main house, watching her, is the woman I used to love, her twin sister, making sure her story stays the only one that matters.
I never thought a date could save your life. Mine did. And then it ruined everything that came after. Her name was Chloe. We met at one of those team-building things my old company used to force us into, a happy hour. She was a friend of a coworker, standing alone by the bar, looking as out of place as I felt. We got to talking. She was easy to talk to. Quiet, but in a thoughtful way. She listened, really listened, you know. Most people just wait for their turn to speak. Our first real date was at a diner off the interstate, pancakes at midnight. She told me about growing up in a small town upstate. She said her family was gone, car accident when she was in college. It was just her and an older sister, and her sister was in that car. She didn't like to talk about it. I understood. I shared my own stuff, my mom's health issues, my dad being distant. It felt real. Things moved fast, in a good way. She was just there for me. My mom took a bad turn, and I had to drive back to my hometown for a week. Chloe insisted on coming. She said, you shouldn't have to do that alone. She was amazing with my mom, better than me. She'd sit and hold her hand, help her eat, talk about nothing. My dad, this stoic, quiet man, even he warmed up to her. He pulled me aside one evening on the porch and said, she's a good one. Don't let her go. I'd never heard him say anything like that about anyone I'd dated. That's when the first thing happened. We were staying in my old bedroom. One night I woke up and she wasn't in bed. I found her in the living room, standing in the dark, just looking at the family photos on the mantel. I flipped on the light. She didn't even jump. She just pointed to a picture of me and my sister, Jenny, from when we were kids. We're on a swing set. You never told me you had a sister, she said. Her voice was flat. It never came up, I said.
half asleep. We're not close. She lives out west. Different lives. Chloe just nodded. She looks like a Jenny. Then she went back to bed. It was weird, but I brushed it off. Stress, grief over my mom. Everyone acts a little weird sometimes. A month after we got back, my mom passed. It was a blur. Funeral arrangements, family, the whole nightmare. Chloe handled everything. I mean, she practically ran the show. My dad was shattered, and I was useless. She picked out the flowers, coordinated with the funeral home, greeted people. My aunt commented on how lucky I was. My dad leaned on her completely. The day after the funeral, we were at my dad's house, sorting through papers. He asked Chloe to go down to the basement to fetch a specific file box. She was down there a long time. I went to check on her. The box was on the floor. She was sitting on an old stool, perfectly still, holding a different box open on her lap. It was my sister's old stuff. School projects, ribbons, childhood things. Chloe had a small framed school photo of Jenny in her hand. She was staring at it. "Chloe?" She looked up. Her eyes were dry, but they had this intensity. "You two really aren't close, are you?" "No, like I said." "That's a shame," she said, placing the photo back with careful precision. "Family is everything, until it's gone." She stood up, smoothed her black dress, and brought the correct file box upstairs. She was perfectly helpful, perfectly normal for the rest of the day.
We drove home the next morning. My dad hugged Chloe longer than he hugged me. He whispered something in her ear. She just nodded and gave him a soft smile. A week later, Jenny called me. I hadn't spoken to her in months. "Hey," she said. Her voice sounded strange. "Is everything okay with Dad?" "Yeah, as okay as it can be. Why?" "He just called me, out of the blue. Said he'd been thinking and that he was sorry we weren't closer. He said he talked it over with Chloe and she helped him see how important it was to reconnect." Jenny paused. "Who's Chloe?" I explained. My sister got quiet. "That's weird, man. How would she even know about me, to talk about me with Dad?" "I mentioned you once," I said, but even as I said it, I remembered. I hadn't, not really, just that night in the living room. "Well, it freaked me out a little," Jenny said. "Just tell her to back off, okay? My relationship with Dad is my business." I promised I would. That night, I brought it up lightly with Chloe over dinner. "Hey, my sister called, said Dad reached out. That was nice of you to encourage him." Chloe put her fork down. She didn't think it was nice. "What? No, she was surprised." "She was angry," Chloe corrected, her voice calm and certain. "She doesn't understand family. She left. I saw her room, all her things packed away. She left your father alone after everything." There was a heat in her words I'd never heard before. "It's complicated, Chloe. It's not our place." "It is my place," she said, and the calm was back, but it was icy. "Your father is my family now. I protect my family."
The next few days were cold. Polite, but cold. I figured we needed space. I had a work trip come up, 3 days in Chicago. I thought it was perfect timing. The night before I left, Chloe apologized. She said she was just stressed, that she wanted me to have a good trip. She made my favorite meal. It felt like we were back to normal. My second night in Chicago, my phone buzzed at 2 a.m. It was my dad. His voice was a raw, panicked whisper. "You need to come home, now." "Dad? What's wrong? Is it your heart?" "It's Chloe." He was crying. "She's here." "At your house? Why?" "She showed up tonight. Said she was worried about me being alone. She let herself in. I think she has a key." He was trying to control his breathing. "Son, she's in Jenny's old room. She brought a suitcase. She's rearranging things. She put her own clothes in the dresser. She's in there right now, just sitting on the bed. She won't leave. I told her to go, and she just smiled and said she was right where she belonged now, that she was fixing the hole in this family." My blood went cold. "Call the police, Dad, right now." I tried, from the bathroom. They said it's a civil matter. She hasn't threatened me. She's just here, in your sister's room. She said Jenny wasn't coming back anyway, that she'd taken care of it. I caught on the next flight home. I drove straight to my dad's house from the airport. The front door was unlocked. The house was silent. "Dad?" No answer. I ran upstairs. My dad's bedroom was empty. Jenny's door was closed. I pushed it open. The room was spotless. Not just clean, but perfectly arranged, like a showroom. The bed was made with a floral quilt I didn't recognize. Chloe's suitcase was open in the corner, empty. On the dresser, the childhood photos of Jenny were gone. In their place were pictures of Chloe. One of her with my dad on the porch, one of her and me at the diner. My dad was sitting in the rocking chair by the window. He was staring straight ahead, his face pale. "Dad?" He flinched, then looked at me. His eyes were hollow. "She's gone," he said. "Thank God. Are you okay? What happened?" He didn't answer my question. He just kept talking, his voice a monotone. "She made coffee this morning. She was humming. She said she was going to the store to get ingredients for a pot roast, your mother's recipe. She said we'd have a proper family dinner tonight." He finally looked at me. "She said she talked to Jenny, that Jenny understood now, that Jenny wasn't going to be a problem for this family anymore." I called my sister. It rang and rang. I called her partner. No answer. I called the local police near her in Oregon. I filed a missing persons report. They asked for a recent photo. I realized I didn't have one. The most recent one was in that box in the basement, the one Chloe had been holding. The police found Jenny's car 2 days later, abandoned in a remote Forest Service area 100 miles from her home. No sign of her, no sign of a struggle, just gone, like her. Chloe never came back to my dad's house. She never came back to our apartment. Her phone was disconnected. She vanished as completely as my sister did. The police questioned me. They questioned my dad. They said without evidence of a crime, there was nothing they could do. They used words like adult voluntarily missing and relationship discord. They asked if my sister had a history of running away. I said she was 38 years old. My dad lives in that house alone now. He won't move. He won't change Jenny's room back. I go over every weekend to check on him. We sit in the living room. Sometimes I catch him staring at the mantel, at the spot where that photo of me and Jenny used to be. It's been replaced. It's a photo of him and Chloe from the funeral. She's holding his arm, and they're both smiling softly. We never talk about it. We just sit there, in the quiet, waiting for a pot roast dinner that's never gonna come.
If you liked the story, subscribe and like it, and also write a comment about what topic you would like to hear about.